Today, I'd like to continue our discussion of how we can help with the waste problem that we are encountering. One of the difficulties in terms of the environment, in terms of keeping our environment clean, is, of course, the accumulation of large amounts of waste. And so, what can we do about it? How can we reduce it? Different solutions have been offered, but one of the things that we're trying to work on really is the reduction in terms of the use of plastics. So this idea of waste reduction by manufacturers, how can it be accomplished? One of the thoughts, it could be accomplished by incentivizing the manufacturer with fee reductions. So if they do recycle, if they do this concept of circular economy, the packaging coming back to them, uh, an incentive could be reducing certain fees that they would be otherwise charged. And then manufacturers also could be rewarded for modernizing their recycling centers. So if this material is taken back to them for recycling, again, in terms of their tax situation, it could really be a great incentive for them to be rewarded for doing that. And that would be very helpful in terms of making it easier for the manufacturer in terms of absorbing the costs of this, but also easier for the public because, again, you're not charging additional money for the consumer, and easier ultimately for the consumer because you're not paying more in taxes in terms of shipping this garbage to other places or disposing of this garbage in other ways. And then also, of course, the medical costs that come in terms of the pollution of the air and the water and the land from the disposal of the packaging. So all of that could be certainly a benefit. And this really establishes the goal of this type of approach, which is what we call a circular economy. So something is given to the consumer, comes back to the manufacturer, goes back to the consumer. This whole idea is to not, dispose of it in some other way, where it's going to do harm ultimately to the environment and to people and to animals, fish, all sorts of levels of harm here. Now, the New York State Business Council and many business councils throughout the country have taken a look at this and they're opposed to this and they say, well, this is far too costly. It's we're spending enough money on the packaging as it is. We're not making a ton of money here. Please don't get the government involved in something and mess us up, make it harder for us. Uh, and of course, that's a very legitimate and real concern that must be addressed. You don't want businesses to have all these extra costs and then the business can't function properly, and people go out of business, and again, the job loss that results from that. So certainly this must be listened to and appreciated. And I think that's why the fee incentives, the tax incentives, something that would help your typical manufacturer with the cost of perhaps making this product and then taking the product back and getting involved in a circular situation. We saw it, of course, years ago with milk delivery, where the person would come to the home, drop the milk, take the empties back and forth. So, this concept, of course, is not a new concept, but we've gotten used to trying to cut corners a bit and say, well, we can do this, but ultimately, where are we going to put this garbage? And in putting it someplace, what is the negative impact of that in terms of our environment? There's also the idea of expanding the bottle bill. The bottle bill now nets a deposit when you return of 5 cents. The proposal is now to expand that to 10 cents. And the idea of that is that it would be even more of an incentive for people to recycle their bottles and to expand it to most bottles, cans, and some jars, include more types of containers for recycling, including liquor, wine, tea bottles, those iced tea, energy and sports drinks, milk containers, and juice boxes. So if it could be expanded, this would be such a good thing because again, it's going to take more out of the waste stream. And increasing it from 5 cents to 10 cents, again, it makes more of an incentive for the consumer to actually do it. And the rate of return of the bottles has been very good. It's been really a win for the environment, and expanding it would really be helpful as well. The flaw in many of these situations is that a lot of times the advisory committees are dominated by businesses, and you can see because they're really into trying to cut costs and make more profit. So, which again is their mission. So you can see that they would obviously want to be on the committees. So the idea of having a balance on the committees obviously very important. The New York State, in terms of New York State, the best recycling program that we have had has been the model deposit law. Now, it's interesting. With the increase to 10 cents, the rate in return in Oregon has gone up to 85% of the bottles being returned, and 94% in Michigan. New York has stayed between 62 and 65%. So again, to increase that percentage by another 20 to perhaps even 30% would be a big win for the environment. Uh, Local governments, those outside of New York City, they pay $80 million each year to keep recycling programs alive. So that's a ton of money that they're paying, and the idea of sharing that cost would be important. In paper recycling, the paper industry recycles about 50 million tons of recovered paper annually, more than 1 billion tons over the past 2 decades. The cardboard recycling rate in 2020 was nearly 89% in New York, and nearly 89% of the residents have access to curbside recycling. So again, another win. So sometimes we look at this as too challenging uh, a concept to take on, too challenging a problem to deal with. But when we look at the fact that there have been wins, there are wins certainly in the bottles, there are wins in the newspaper and paper, cardboard recycling. Can those wins be expanded now to other packaging that we use in terms of our products? And I think this is certainly an area that's worth exploring and doing it in a way that could be certainly not harmful to businesses and crippling to them and not crippling to the consumer. Doing it in a very judicious way would be very important. But as Pope Francis says that we have to have a different attitude. We have to have this attitude of looking at the earth as our common home. How can we reverence that home? How can we improve the quality of our air, our water, and our land in our common home? God bless.